Okay, let's dive into a medical mystery that a lot of people experience. You know that strange, unsettling tingling or numbness in your hand? The first thing you wonder is, what on earth is going on? So you feel it in your hand, and naturally, you think the problem must be right there. But here's the twist we're going to unravel today. The actual source of the problem could be way further up the line, starting all the way in your neck. The body's wiring is incredibly complex, and sometimes the place you feel the symptom is just the end of a very long wire. And this is the real puzzle for doctors. The symptoms, that numbness, the tingling, maybe some weakness or pain, can feel exactly the same whether it's a pinched nerve in your arm or something going on in your spine. So how in the world do you tell them apart? Well, we're going to approach this like true detectives. We're going to open up the case file. We'll start by investigating our main suspects, the spinal cord itself, then the individual nerve roots coming off it, and finally the peripheral nerves out in the arm. After that, we'll look at the key tests that help crack the case before delivering our final verdict. All right, let's start with our first suspect, and it's the big one, a problem at the very top, inside the spinal cord in your neck. You can think of this as an issue with the body's main power station. The official name for this is cervical myelopathy. This is what happens when the entire spinal cord in the neck gets compressed. And because the spinal cord is the central hub for pretty much all the signals, a problem here can mess with a ton of different circuits downstream. We're talking issues not just in the hands, but sometimes with balance and walking too. Now, check this out. This image shows the body's sensory map, and it's all organized into these zones called dermatomes. Each zone is wired to one specific spinal nerve. But with myelopathy, because the whole cord is getting squeezed, the symptoms are usually widespread and kind of vague. They don't just follow one of these neat little lines. So this is where the detective work really kicks in. Doctors look for very specific clues that point to a problem at the power station. Things like the finger escape sign, where your pinky and ring fingers just kind of drift apart when you try to hold them straight, or maybe a weak grip, or even small changes in the way you walk. These are the red flags that scream myelopathy. Okay, on to our next suspect. If the first one was a problem at the power station, this one is like a problem with one of the major cables leaving the station. We're talking about a single nerve root right as it exits the spine. This condition is called cervical radiculopathy. Now, unlike myelopathy, this is not about the whole spinal cord. Nope. This is all about one specific nerve root getting pinched or irritated, usually right in the little opening in the bone where it leaves the spine. This makes for a much more focused, localized problem. And this is where it gets really cool, because the symptoms literally draw you a map. If the C6 nerve root is the problem, you're going to feel it down your arm and into your thumb, and you might have weakness in your biceps. A C7 issue, that points straight to the middle finger. C8, you're looking at the ring and pinky fingers. The symptoms are so specific they point directly to the culprit. So, how does a doctor check for this? Well, they might use a clever maneuver called Sperling's test. By carefully positioning your head and neck, they can gently narrow that little opening where the nerve comes out. And if that makes your specific arm and hand symptoms flare up, that's a huge clue that you're dealing with radiculopathy. All right, time for our last group of suspects. We've looked at the power station and the main cables. Now, let's look at the individual wires running through the walls of your arm and all the way into your hand. These are the peripheral nerves. We call this peripheral neuropathy. And with this, the problem isn't in the neck at all. Instead, a nerve gets trapped, squeezed, or damaged somewhere along its journey through the arm, usually at these predictable choke points, like your elbow or your wrist. So let's follow one of these wires. This is the ulnar nerve, and you definitely know this one. It's your funny bone nerve, the one that sends that electric jolt when you bump it. It runs through a really tight groove right behind the elbow, inside something called the cubital tunnel. That location makes it super easy for it to get pinched, leading to a condition called cubital tunnel syndrome. A really classic test for an ulnar nerve problem is called Froment's sign. It's so simple. A doctor asks you to pinch a piece of paper. If your ulnar nerve is weak, you can't use the proper muscle to pinch, so you subconsciously cheat by bending the tip of your thumb. You're using a totally different muscle run by a different nerve. It's a dead giveaway. Okay, next up, let's follow another major wire, the median nerve. Now, its most famous choke point is right here at the wrist, where it has to pass through a really narrow hallway called the carpal tunnel. But here's a little twist in the case. The median nerve can get compressed at the wrist, causing carpal tunnel syndrome, or it can get pinched higher up near the elbow, which causes something called pronator syndrome. The symptoms in your hand feel almost identical, but there's one tiny critical clue. sensation over the fleshy part at the base of your thumb. It's often numb in pronator syndrome, but totally fine in carpal tunnel. So we've got all these suspects, all these clues, and so much overlap. It's confusing, right? So how do clinicians finally crack the case? Well, the breakthrough clue, the evidence that often blows the case wide open, comes from listening to the body's electrical signals. This right here is often the smoking gun. Think of it like this. Doctors can test the sensory nerve signal traveling from your hand back toward your spine. With radiculopathy, the neck problem, the pinch is before the nerve's little signal-generating station, so the signal traveling from the hand actually looks perfectly normal. But with a peripheral neuropathy like carpal tunnel, the pinch is right on the wire itself, so it slows down or shrinks the signal. So a normal test points to the neck, while an abnormal test points to the arm. And that brings us to our final detective's checklist. Myelopathy is the big central problem, often affecting both sides and even your legs. Radiculopathy is the specific neck problem. It follows that map and it has a normal sensory test. And neuropathy is the problem out in the arm itself, following a specific nerve path and, crucially, having an abnormal sensory test. So, we've examined all the suspects and we've reviewed the evidence. It is time to deliver the final verdict and talk about what this whole mystery really means. You know, the research paper that inspired this explainer said it perfectly. It said the way these symptoms all converge, or look the same, can pose a formidable challenge to clinicians. And that's exactly it. It's why a careful, systematic investigation is so important. You can't just go by how it feels. And really, if there's one big thing to take away from all this, it's that where you feel the symptom is just the first clue. It's the start of the mystery, not the end. The problem often isn't where you feel the pain. This whole case is a fantastic reminder that our nervous system is one long, incredibly complex, interconnected highway. And to solve a problem, you can't just look at the traffic jam, you have to understand the entire road. It really forces us to ask the question, are we listening to the whole story our body is trying to tell us?